Before the match begins, the players select the option suited for their game. The match time has been selected for 10 minutes. The options for opponents can be online tournaments, against a friend, or against a computer/AI. Player 1 makes the first move. They select a pawn to move one space. A pawn is usually the first piece that is moved forward. Player 2 moves his pawn that is in front of player 1's pawn to block it. Because pawns can only capture pieces that are diagonal from them, player 2 has prevented the white pawn from moving forward. Because it is the pawn's first turn for both players, they are allowed to move 2 spaces forward instead of 1. Now moving on to the pieces behind the pawns, at all corners, the rook acts as the forward walls protecting the high rank pieces. Despite carrying 5 points, which is 2 points more than the bishop and the knights, rook's movements are simple and tank-like, straightforward and stoic. Next to the rooks stands the knights, the only pieces with the ability to jump over others, similar to real-life knights. Moving in the shape of the letter L, knights present a big threat to most of the pieces, and they can even threaten the powerful queen without risk of being exposed. Standing proudly next to the king and queen are the bishops. Geographically, bishops resemble the church that is usually located next to the palace. Theoretically, bishops represent religious belief, which is why there are 2 bishops. Only one can move through the black squares, and one can only move through the white squares. And now, the 2 most important and powerful pieces, the king and queen. The queen holds 9 points and the power of both the rook and the bishop. Despite the ability to move freely and attack vigorously, the queen still requires extra protection, because the moment you lose the queen, you lose the captain of your army. One could even argue that chess promotes matriarchy because the queen is the most powerful chess piece.
Chess is a game that represents life in a controlled environment where the player is given full agency to experiment with how they play the game. This can help people overcome obstacles because the chessboard is an environment with no distractions and more possibilities than the human mind can even comprehend. Nonetheless, there are only 64 squares, and players learn to make meaning quickly out of the game, just as we do in real life, where it seems even more miraculous. A study from Monash University looked into various life skills, such as executive functioning, after placing subjects under intensive chess training programs, and they found that it reduced risk aversion and increased math scores. Memory wasn't significantly affected, but it makes sense that risk aversion was lower due to the risky strategies that people learn to employ in chess games. Taking risks, even in the form of a piece sacrifice in a chess game, teaches you that it can be worthwhile to take action and face uncertainty because it can potentially pay off. On the other hand, learning to evaluate the merits of a risk teaches the valuable skill of patience. Unsound gambits or sacrifices can lead to quickly lost games, but the feedback you receive is instrumental in learning how the mistakes occur and how to fix them, just like in life. Another study looked into the visual perspective taking skills of chess players. Visual perspective taking, VPT, is a vital skill that is used to view the world from someone else's perspective. This involves social and reasoning skills to use the information available to them to find a way to step into their shoes. A game like chess is a much more straightforward representation of each player's perspective because all information about the game world is shared. So the main cognitive task for taking the opponent's perspective is to imagine you were to sit on the other side of the board. This is also a useful strategy for chess because applying heuristics based around which move you expect the opponent could make will drastically reduce the number of board states you have to calculate when planning out future moves. Unsurprisingly, chess experience was found to have reduced the cognitive load placed on subjects when switching visual perspectives. This is likely due to the need to quickly switch perspectives when evaluating possible moves from both sides.
Chess is about planning, but at the same time adapting, and so is life. We make plans for the day, for the week, for a vacation, for a career, for a relationship, etc. And chess is just as similar. We plan the next moves, the next reaction, and so on. But as always, life does not always go as planned, and chess strategies often do not go as expected. Adaptation is a life skill learned by experiencing different scenarios, which is the same way pro chess players become pros in first play. We only learn to identify the options to a situation and pick the optimal strategy by experiencing that particular situation. Chess is the application of knowledge. On the other hand, chess reflects real-life social cultures. Based on the pure board setup, we can even see that the most powerful and affluent ones are surrounded by less thriving pieces. The most powerful are often or sometimes the most sensitive to attacks, despite the fact that they hold so much power and so much resources. They can and also determine the fate of the game or the fate of a business or a project or any event. They simply and physically cannot defend themselves and must rely on the help of others to survive. The power dynamics of chess pieces reflects the power dynamics of society, and the points assigned to each piece can be argued to represent the wealth of each individual or even social class, where a sacrifice is equivalent to an investment. Chess players sacrifice pieces to gain control over the board, to bait their opponents into giving up more valuable resources, or even to checkmate in the next one or two moves. In general, a sacrifice always incurs an instant loss of power, and a sacrifice is only performed as a last resort to earn and achieve a bigger goal. The process of evaluating what is more valuable is a lesson that every chess player and everyone must learn, whether like it or not. Life is a game of chess because chess is a game of life. You win some and you lose some. You sacrifice what you can afford to lose in order to win what you desire.